Это наша ночь, это наши вопросы.
The text is based on a dramatic and disturbing story related to the disappearances and murders of people who tried to sell their cars through the popular newspaper CHEROKEE. This newspaper served as an important means for millions of Russians who did not have significant financial resources to buy or sell a car profitably. However, in this case, the ads for sale became a trap into which people fell, which ultimately led to their tragic fates. The story begins with a description of the first disappearances. Robert Borisovich, a resident of the Fili Davidkovo district, contacts the police department after his son Konstantin and his wife Valeria did not return home. Their last intention was to sell their car, a Grand Cherokee Jeep. The story then repeats itself with other car owners, such as Valery Kaziev and Sergei Zmin. They all posted ads for their cars, arranged meetings with buyers, but disappeared without a trace. This forced law enforcement agencies to initiate criminal cases and launch a large-scale investigation. The investigation showed that all the disappearances were connected to the same car service center located in Moscow, on the territory of a military base unit in the Pochatniki district. The police officers who arrived at the scene encountered resistance and false identification from people who, as it later turned out, were connected to a criminal group. However, the persistence of the investigators led to searches in the hangar of the car service center, where the personal belongings of the missing persons and, most importantly, the documents for the cars were found. This became the key piece of evidence that allowed the disappearances to be linked to the owner of the car repair shop, Evgeny Nagorny. Then the crime drama unfolds. Evgeny Nagorny and his accomplice Stavitsky organized the kidnappings and murders of people who came to the meeting to sell their cars. Their method was cruel and cold-blooded. After inspecting the car, the victim was shot in the head, and the body was thrown through a hatch into a sewer manhole under the hangar floor. This place served as a kind of cemetery for the deceased, whose bodies were found by investigators sometime later. Particular attention is paid to the psychological state of Stavitsky, who after his arrest showed serious mental disorders and was declared insane, while Nagorny refused to testify in court, behaving defiantly, which only increased the tension in the process. The trial ended with a life sentence for Yevgeny Nagorny, although many questions remained unanswered. In particular, the presence of all the persons involved was not proven, which allowed us to assume that more influential and serious forces were behind these murders, using the car service as a cover for their activities. It is also mentioned that the cars were sold on request. This indicates a carefully planned criminal scheme, with clients demanding specific cars, approximately 002130 to 002350. Thus, before us unfolds a grim picture of crimes, where naive car salesmen became victims of cold-blooded killers who took advantage of the popularity of newspaper ads and the gullibility of citizens. The case of Nagorny and Stavitsky is an example of how crime can penetrate everyday life, using ordinary mechanisms of trade and communication, and how difficult it is to solve such crimes, especially when influential figures are behind them. In conclusion, the text not only tells about specific criminal cases, but also raises questions about the social vulnerability of citizens, the shortcomings of the law enforcement system, and the scale of the criminal world, which can disguise itself as ordinary business. This is a tragic story that leaves